Hi teachers, Melissa from Melissa Willis Music. I wanted to jump on and give you another teaching tip for today. One thing I wanted to mention first though is I did a video yesterday about introducing and reinforcing eighth note rhythms with students, and I had a couple of comments that the video was too quiet, that something was wrong with the volume or the sound. So it sounded fine on all of my devices. So please let me know if there's more than just a couple of you where it didn't work right. I don't know if it's a Mac versus PC thing or what happened. So, drop me an email, a Facebook message, or just comment on any of the video posts if that was a problem, if you couldn't hear it, because if there's enough people that really couldn't hear it, I'll go ahead and try to redo it. My apologies for that. I'm not really sure why that happened. So I'm hoping this volume comes through okay. So my teaching tip for today is about directional reading and intervallic reading. So this is something that has worked really, really well with students. It would also work in person, but honestly, because I was right there next to the student, this wasn't something I really did until I started teaching online, and then I found it worked really well. And even after that, I've started doing this with in-person students as well. But the way I presented it works really, really well online. So I'm going to bring you over here to my board. So again, this is the Music Mind Game staff slate. This is from the classroom pack. You can buy a single staff slate from Music Mind Games that's foldable, where you just get one. And then also you can just use any grand staff that you have and just adapt this to whatever it is that you have. So you don't necessarily have to have one of these. But what I like about the Music Mind Game staff slate is that on the flip side, it has just a blank staff. So it doesn't have any clefs, so you can work specifically just on directional reading without associating with any letter name. So I'm going to flip that over. And then I'm also going to use my magic notes today, which I know many of you have asked about how I made these. These do not come as magnets, so I'm going to show you at the end how I make these and talk about the supplies and things so that you can all do that. Because these, I can't imagine teaching online without some sort of staff and my little magic notes. So they have just become an invaluable tool. So what I would do with my very young students who are just getting to the staff and just learning about directional reading is I would just make maybe a really simple pattern like this. And what I would ask them to do is we would just talk through it together. So I would ask them how the notes move and just kind of point to it. And we would, talk about how they repeat, step up, step up, step up. And I would remind them again that there's no treble clef here, there's no bass clef here, so these don't have any letter names. And then I would have them play this on the piano once we've talked through it. So I'll have them pick their right hand thumb and put it on any key, or their left hand pinky and put it on any key, and then they would just go ahead. I would actually point to help them track because they're going to be looking at the screen, and I would have them play that pattern from any white key. Now, what's fun about that is once they've successfully played that pattern one time, because there's no clef, then you can have them go to a different white key of their choosing. You can have them switch hands so they can keep playing, excuse me, they can keep playing the same pattern just in a different spot. So they're really focused, again, like I said, on directional reading and not on any letter names, so that's really useful. The other thing is they're reading from the screen, so they can't look at their hands. They don't really make that connection, but I know that's something that lots of times we have to work on, is to try to get students to look at their music and not their hands. And sort of by default, they end up doing that. So it's really useful that way too. And then as they get more comfortable, you can change the patterns up and make them more interesting. You can add in skips, and you could add in steps and skips, make it change direction more often. So there's, of course, all just endless amount of patterns you can make, right? Now, as students get farther along, I also use this and just talk through intervals. I'm trying to think of anything interesting here we can do. Again, I made it a little bit longer, fourth up, fourth down. So you can devise any patterns that you want. If you have a student that's really struggling with a certain interval, you can design a pattern to kind of meet their needs. Now, for older students, you could even you know, make it all kinds of different things. And do all sorts of intervals, so you get some sixths and fourths and thirds, and you can take them out of that pentascale. But what I found with students is after I do a few of these patterns, even with my youngest students, when they get to their music, I remind them, be sure that you look at your music just like you looked at the board, and they do that. And I think what it does, you know, again, we're so used to being right there next to them. On the music, if they get stuck, we can point to the page, or we can point to each note and help them track. They've practiced tracking on the board, and then it goes a little bit better than when they get to the music and you can't be sitting right there next to them. So that's a great way that I use that. And we do a little bit of that actually right at the start of the lesson, because it sort of gets their mind thinking about what they're supposed to notice when they get in their music. So I hope that is helpful. You could do it on the grand staff side and attach it to note names. But I find that then they start thinking more about letter names, and it sort of takes their focus away from the direction. So I try to do it on the clef, the side without a clef, because I find that most useful. Now, I'm going to talk about how I make these magic notes. So I'm going to move it back here. Magic notes. Whoops. Magic notes just come. If you can, there we go. They're just flat little bingo chips, and they have this magnetic, they have a metal ring, because there is a magic wand that I don't use online, but it's magnetic and it picks all of these up. So in-person students think that's really cool to have a magic wand. But what I do is get these, they're called magnetic buttons. And what's unique about these, so they've got kind of a thick magnetic part here. And then they have this self-adhesive white foam top. So that's really the secret. And when you put the magic note on that white foam, it just pops the color, because it's not sitting on the actual magnets, it's sitting on the white foam. And these are have a little bit of depth to them, so then they sort of pop out of the staff as well. And then they're easy to make, because it's just all self-adhesive. You don't need any glue or anything. Now, I bought these at Walmart a few years ago for like $3 or $4 a pack, and they're getting tricky to find. So Amazon still has some packs of these that I've been linking people to. They're a little bit different brand. They're a little bit more expensive. They're around $7 for 18 of them. But I was trying to figure out a way for teachers to make these without doing that. So because eventually I think these are going to sell out because of me. So what I did is I just cut a round piece of white paper about the size of the magnet. These are, by the way, they're 3/4 inch circles. I should have specified that. And I just took some clear tacky glue, and I glued the magic note to the white. And then you can find circle magnets that are a little bit thinner, that just have a self-adhesive stick. So there's not white foam, but you could just take off that, and I don't have any here, but you could just take off that, the sticky part, and then and you would attach the white paper and the magnet to the magnet, if that makes sense. So then the color would still pop. So if you put it right on the magnet, of course the colors sort of disappear and they all end up a little bit dark. So I would check that out as well, and I can link in the comments of the video, I can link the fancy foam ones, but also you can get like 100 plain circles, I think, for like $7. So you get a lot more bang for your buck. You just have to cut lots of little white circles and then get some clear glue. Now, the only thing with the glue on the plastic, I think I have these magic notes here, and if you can see this color, this is actually 2 magic notes glued onto each other to get that color. So it's to get all the colors of the rainbow. So this is the indigo, so it's a purple, or blue on top of a purple, that's what it is. And sometimes these come unglued and I just have to re-glue them. So I think the only drawback about gluing them on paper and then putting them on the magnet is that you might have to re-glue some of them back to the paper. They won't come unglued right away, but over time and with use they might come loose. So I think that's the only drawback, but it's probably a small drawback if that's the only option, right? And I think that's everything. So I will link the staff slate in the comments if you want that. And then I'll link the magic notes. and then I'll link the magnets with the foam circles, and I will link the smaller just self-adhesive circles, so you have all of that information. And please, if you have any questions, let me know. So I'm happy to be of help. Happy teaching. Bye-bye.